How you doing, man? You doing okay this morning?
Man, good morning, my brother. How are you? I'm doing well. Thank you for asking, and I pray you are doing as well, at least, and hopefully better.
I'm doing okay. I am
Come on, man. You just too humble.
tired. I'm getting tired. That's all. But I'm doing okay. Dr. Wilmer Leon, he's a radio host, political scientist, nationally syndicated columnist, host of Connecting the Dots on YouTube, Inside the Issues on Sirius Radio. You are the person I want to talk to. You are a student of history. Um, you have read more books than I can. I'm not going to say than I can count. Obviously, I can count better.
I've read more books than the average bear.
You've read more. Thank you. That's a better way to put it. I couldn't figure out how to finish that sentence. So thank you for that.
I've read more books than the average bear.
And you're a student of U.S. history in a very sincere and learned way. What do you make of this national security strategy document? I mean, granted, whether the document comes into effect in real terms or not is kind of besides the point. It's the fact that Eldridge Colby effectively sat down and wrote this document that is getting a huge amount of press in a sense of what this document means. And people have come away with different assessments for it. But it seems to be turning the Wolfowitz doctrine, if not on its head, at the very least, putting a spin to it. But give me your take on this.
It's difficult to assess for me because there's other than so-called Make America Great Again, which is really a trope. There's no real consistent guiding ideology. So it seems to start from a so-called strategy, because when you look at section 1, I think it starts with strategy, but strategy without a goal or an ideology is, to me, somewhat reckless. It says to me, if you don't know where you're going, then any road will get you there. It is a retrenchment from dominating Europe. It seems to reflect a shift in focus away from Europe to the Americas. It seems to be Monroe Doctrine redux. It reflects, I believe, a transactional Donald Trump. No overarching worldview. In fact, during his Politico interview, he says, when asked about, I think the question was either, the question was about Europe, and he just basically said, I don't really care. I don't really care about Europe. And then the first part of the sentence was, I don't really care about Europe. And then he comes back and says, but I want Europe to be strong. When the State of the Union comes up in the second semester of the school year, I tell my students, watch the State of the Union, and I said, pay attention to these types of speeches at different times in the speech. Speak to different audiences, and so sometimes you'll hear what seems to be inconsistency in the speech. I said, but because there are different audiences being spoken to at different times of the speech. That is a strategic creation. This, though, seems to be not a strategic creation. This really just seems to be a lack of focus, a lack of guiding ideology. Again, to which Donald Trump admits, I don't really, I don't know. That so I don't know if that gives you an answer, but
No, it does.
okay.
I guess I took it as the U.S. wants to maintain primacy,
I'm
and
sorry,
it
U.S. I didn't hear you. Wants to.
wants to maintain primacy,
Oh, absolutely.
and the way that it's recognizing that, okay, $37 trillion in debt. We have a fracturing political structure that can no longer supply the needs of the population. So how do we do this in
It,
this new context? And it
it's
seems that the way they decided was using allies. So we want Europe to be stronger. We're going to push Israel to deal with the Middle East. We're going to push the Philippines, South Korea, et cetera, effectively to take over operations of throwing them at China. That's the way I took it.
it's an aging boxer.
Yes.
In fact, it's an old boxer. It's Mike Tyson deciding he wants to regain his title. Unfortunately, he doesn't have and I'm just using that name. This is not a accusation against Mike Tyson. Because he can still whip people on an airplane.
Yes, you can.
No, but I mean, so pick an aging fighter who decides that he wants to regain his title, but he doesn't hire a trainer, and so he just kind of does what he's used to doing, not realizing that those strategies don't work anymore because the body has changed, because
Right.
the competition has changed. We can't we all we really seem to have now is the dollar, and that is on the wane. So instead of realizing I need now to get along with my adversaries, that I need to change my mindset. So here it is. So that we haven't realized we can no longer control the game, but we can influence the outcome. That, I think, is the piece that we're missing.
Yeah.
If we work with our adversaries, and see, I even think we don't need to think of China as an enemy. We don't need to think about Russia as an enemy. We don't need to think about Iran as an enemy. We need to think of them as adversaries. And if we did that, and again, started to understand, I can't control the game anymore. And I'll put it on a very personal level. My son is 23 years old. I can no longer he no longer technically lives in the house. He's moved out. I can't tell him what to do anymore.
Yeah.
But I can call him and I can say, "Hey son, have you thought about? Hey son, you might want to think about. Oh dad, appreciate that. I'll tell you, so I can still manage him, but I can't control him anymore.
Yeah, you can influence,
Mm-hmm.
but power is different.
Right.
Listen
And
to
also
this.
because if you've seen my son, he weighs about 245 pounds.
Oh, the big guy. He's
Yeah,
a big
if I try to put my hands on him, he'll snap me in half. That's a great metaphor, because there was a time, as with the, and please forgive, I use fountain pens. I got ink on my hands.
You're fine.
I don't want people to think my fingers are falling off. I got
Gangrene or something like that. It's
gangrene.
like, oh,
It was
what's wrong with
actually
Wilmer?
it's
Yeah.
gang blue, because I use fountain pens. Anyway, but that's not just that's a great metaphor, because there was a time when he and I both were younger and he was smaller, that I could apply force, and it would work. Can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And I've realized I can't do that anymore. So I've got to change my strategy.
Yeah.
We don't
This,
do that.
this is Joint Chief of Staff. Listen to what he says, because I think this lines up with what Hegseth mentioned at one point, saying, hey, we need our allies to effectively die for the temerity of or the integrity of the United States. But listen to what this guy says, because I think this is what that document boils down to.
Eyes of the Chinese military. What our goal in the joint force is to create multiple simultaneous dilemmas for all of the adversaries around the world, so that they are very cautious and concerned about doing something that would bring any sense of threat to the American people. And so
I find these people to be just insane.
Yes.
Like I'm even shocked that they have like wives and procreating, for God's sake. The idea that somebody is trying to storm the American beaches, it's just nonsense. But the point that he makes though is we are trying to create multiple points of threats for various quote unquote adversaries around the globe. So yeah, we want to use South Korea, we want to use Japan, we want to use I don't know what's the other country, the Philippines, to go after China and create threats for China. We want to use Europe to create threats for Russia. We want to use Israel to create threats for Iran. Basically, but we personally don't want to put boots on the ground because we realize that's expensive.
We are projecting.
Mhm.
And we are projecting against countries and cultures that have been in the game so much longer than we have that they can see it coming a mile away. Gil Scott Heron said, America, the international Jekyll and Hyde, the land of 1,000 disguises. It sneaks up on you, but rarely surprises. So we think we're going to bait China into a conflict. If that were going to work, we'd be fighting over Taiwan right now. We think we can bait Russia into a conflict. Russia entered Ukraine when Russia was ready to enter Ukraine. Remember, back in April, I think it was, before, I guess I was 22, whenever this thing started, 22, Ukraine sent about 80,000 troops to the Ukraine-Russian border. And Putin, because the United States thought, Joe Biden thought that he could bait Russia into a response. What was the response? Putin picked up the phone and called Joe Biden and said, look, buddy, you don't want none of this. My response will be asymmetrical and disproportionate. I suggest you remove those troops from my border. And Joe Biden picked up the phone, called Zelensky and said, back that thing up. We're not fooling anybody. We're not scaring anybody. And this, yeah, the Gerald R. Ford is the biggest aircraft carrier in the world. So what? We're now overweight. The dynamics of warfare have shifted. The game has changed. We don't wear leather helmets in football anymore. I don't care how big you are. Even the pads have gotten smaller in football. The game has changed. And hypersonic missiles are a game changer. That nuclear powered missile that can fly forever. From what they tell me, it can fly forever. And it's a cruise missile. It can just circumnavigate the earth. We don't have any of that. The submarine game has changed. We can't match the Chinese submarines. We can't match the Russian submarines. The game has changed. We're using muskets now. We're using, since Ken Burns just came out with the Civil War, with the Revolutionary War deal. We're using muskets once again.
Yeah. You mentioned the Politico interview,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the, put it this way, it's an interesting interview.
A good
He
interview.
goes after, he bashes Europe,
Mhm.
like relentlessly bashes Europe. In fact, let's go to the Europe part. So this is, let me see, 12:45. All right, this is when he is talking about Europe, and he, granted, the questioner is baiting him a little bit on this in order to kind of pull him out. But this is not all that much different than what he was saying in the document, that Europe's population is changing. They brought so many people in. What's ironic about this is that part of the reason that so many Syrians came into Europe in the first place, if you remember, was because the United States was effectively overthrowing the Syrian government.
Exactly.
And when those people fled, they fled into Europe. And I remember this picture. You will remember this. Angela Merkel being asked by this child, effectively, "Hey, why won't you let more of us into your country?" Angela Merkel was like, "We can't take any more of you."
Right.
And it was so bad politically, she let another million into the country. Like, this wasn't just random when Syrians just started running into
Right.
Europe. This is the interviewer asking Trump about his take on Europe. I'm going to play this clip.
Because he allows nobody in his country. And Poland has done a very good job in that respect too. But most European nations, they're decaying. They're decaying.
You can imagine some leaders in Europe are a little freaked out by what your posture is, and European.
No, they should be freaked out by what they're doing to their countries. They're destroying their countries.
Well, European Council
and
President.
they're people I like. Look, they're people I like. I get along with them. You know that. But they can't let this happen. And it gets to a point where you can't really correct it. There'll be a point, and it's very close to that
And
point.
what will that mean?
It will mean that they're no longer going to be strong nations.
Does that mean they won't be allies
Or
anymore?
they'll be, well, it depends, it depends. They'll change their ideology, obviously, because the people coming in have a totally different ideology. But it's going to make them much weaker. They'll be much weaker, and they'll be much different.
And what will that mean?
They'll be much weaker. They'll be much different. They're going to change their ideologies. They're decaying as countries. Now, they are decaying. I don't know if it's for the immigration reason, but see, they are decaying.
That's the white supremacist replacement theory.
Mm-hmm.
The immigrants are going to come in, and the immigrants are going to change your ideology. The immigrants are going. That's the white supremacy. There are so many things in what he said when you start to peel back the onion or the layers on the veneer, because he's also totally disassociated from cause and effect. To your point, the Syrians didn't just wake up and say, "Hey, let's go to Europe."
Right. You're right.
Folks in El Salvador, folks in Nicaragua, folks in Honduras, they didn't just wake up and say, "Hey, I got an idea. Let's go to the United States."
Right.
No. There's a cause and effect here. Things don't happen in a vacuum. And to your point, the Syrians went to Europe because they were forced to go to Europe by the actions of the United States. People don't just pick up and decide to move to another and risk life and limb. I don't know how far it is from Syria to Germany.
what, 14-hour, 15-hour flight, 20 hours?
How many of those people flew?
I have
Versus,
no idea.
versus,
Well, there's that, right?
versus trains, planes, and automobiles. I mean,
Yeah.
he's so disassociated. And see, I don't know if that's a psychotic. I don't know if he's just Donnie Dum Dum, or is he really psychologically? I guess I need to call Dr. Bandy Lee and ask her, give me your analysis of this guy. Is he psychotic, or is he just stupid?
Yeah.
I don't know. And that's not rhetorical. I'm not licensed to make that kind of assessment, but I do see and hear the white supremacist replacement theory in his rhetoric, and this total did you mention the blowing up of the Nord Stream pipeline? Who blew that up and why? What impact did that have on the deindustrialization of Europe? What impact did the United States action as it relates to, when Gilligan and the skipper went out and blew up the Nord Stream pipeline? What impact did that have on this whole dynamic shift in the politics of Europe?
Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't come up. That doesn't come up.
No.
It's like Europe is becoming weaker because of the immigrants, missing the fact that the deindustrialization came as a direct result of them not being able to use Russian oil for the pressure that the U.S. was putting on them in the context of the war. It's like that is completely ignored. None of that stuff is taken into consideration.
Right.
Here's another one where he's like, I think they're weak. I think they're weak. Basically, Europe, from Trump's point of view, is just a liability, which on some level they are, but let's be honest on how they got to be that liability.
Sir, it's sometimes hard to tell when you say these things. Do you intend to send kind of a message of tough love to our allies to push them to make reforms, or do you think that many of them are just weak and you don't really want to be allies with them?
I think they're weak, but I also think that they want to be so politically correct. I think they don't know what to do. Europe doesn't know what to do. They don't know what to do on trade either. I mean, I look at a lot of the trade, situation that's going on over there. It's a little bit dangerous, but Europe, they want to be politically correct, and it makes them weak. That's what makes them weak.
It sounds like you want to.
God, there's so much into this. Give me your take on that. Before I say anything.
Well, I was just making a note. Europe doesn't know what to do. That's true. That's true, because the relationship between Europe and the United States is changing dramatically. And so when you come post World War II, and the United States sees how much money it can make through the military industrial complex, and the United States decides it's going to be the policeman of the world. Well, if France and if Germany and if Greece and if Italy, if they don't have to pay to build a military and maintain a military, if Sweden and Denmark don't have to take 60 or 70% of their gross domestic product and invest that money into a military, then they can pay for free education. They can pay for free health care. They can pay for retirement at the age of 62. And they can have good retirement benefits. They can have great unemployment benefits. They can do all of those things. They can afford all of those things. But now what we find happening in Europe is neoliberalism. The policies of neoliberalism are now making their way into Europe the same way that they've devastated the American cannibalized. That's the word I was looking for. Cannibalized the American economy. So now all of a sudden, what do they want to do in France? They want to extend. They want to extend the retirement age to 67, which in the United States we're like, well, come on, so what? But for them, oh man, that's a dynamic shift in one's quality of life. Oh, now all of a sudden we want to cut back on unemployment. We want to cut back on, in Europe, you're off the month of August. You're on vacation the month of, try getting something from Europe in August. You gotta nobody's home. They're all on vacation. But that's changing. So, and it's changing because now France is talking about what? We have to defend ourselves. Britain, we have to defend ourselves. Germany, we have to defend ourselves. But they really seem to be focused in the wrong direction. Russia isn't trying to take over Europe. The United States is.
There, also he mentions trade, and he's like, they don't know what to do on trade.
Oh, trade, right.
Europe has the European Union, which is effectively a trade organization.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing fine on trade. The issue with trade for the most part of Europe is, well, they're under the thumb of the United States.
Right.
And so trading with China or some of these other things are kind of off the table because they're under the thumb of the United States. And let's be honest, what Donald Trump wants is to be able to sell his, quote, big, beautiful pigs into Europe and sell products into Europe that the European Union just doesn't allow. Right. Like I tell people all the time, when I was in Europe, I lost weight. You walk more. The servings are less. The food is better because it's not that it tastes better per se. It's that the quality is better.
It does taste better.
It depends on on where you are.
All right. Okay.
Like if you're getting the sausage.
The food in England is horrible.
Yeah, that's my point, right? It depends on where you are. If you're in Germany and you're getting a sausage, agreed. If you're in Poland, you're getting a sausage, agreed.
Right. If you're in England getting a banger, ugh.
Less so.
Less so. And I'm a big sausage guy, so I got you.
But the quality of it is better.
Yes.
Like what they allow in it is different. I mean, even RFK Jr., if you remember when he came out, he pointed out that there are all of these products that are, quote unquote, generally assumed to be safe, that in some of these things in Europe cause cancer. They're just not allowed. And so Donald Trump is like, hey, we need our products into Europe. And so when he's talking about trade, he's talking about effectively breaking up the European Union in the context of allowing American products in the country. So let's be honest, right? This is not about...
And to your point, remember during the Bush administration, when Europe decided they weren't going to allow, genetically modified beef into Europe, into France, it was France, I think, was the first country that said, we're not allowing American genetically modified beef into our country. And George W., he got all upset and got his shorts all in a bunch and said, well, then we're not going to buy your Roquefort cheese. Who would buy Roquefort cheese anyway? But that's a whole nother conversation. And so the price of Roquefort cheese went up like 1,000% because they said that we don't want to put those chemicals in our bodies.
Yes. Yeah. That's there's so much into what is being said here in regards to going after Europe. And mind you, this is after Europe accepted the tariffs. This is after they accepted this humiliating deal where they're supposed to be paying billions of dollars into weapon systems and everything else that are bought from the United States. Weapons we don't have, with money they don't have, that yet they're supposed to be buying. And with him bashing them all along the way, saying that they're effectively paying for the Ukraine war. Like it's amazing the amount of trash that they take. And yet they stay there nonetheless. They stay there. In the context of Ukraine, this was another interesting comment by Trump on this, because Trump once before said Ukraine is effectively a dictatorship, and people was like, "Whoa," and then he backed away from the comment.
And this is a proxy war.
Yes,
Marco Rubio
and then he
said
backed away from it.
it's a dictatorship and that this is a proxy war.
Listen to what he says here on this
Time
one.
to hold an election.
Is it time for Ukraine to hold an election, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. It's been a long time. It's hasn't been doing particularly well. Yeah, I think it's time. I think it's an important time to hold an election. They're using war not to hold an election, but I would think the Ukrainian people would, should have that choice, and maybe Zelensky would win. I don't know who would win, but they haven't had an election in a long time. They talk about a democracy, but it gets to a point where it's not a democracy anymore.
He's right. He's right. Give me your thoughts.
Well, it's not a democracy now. The United States overthrew the democracy in 2014.
Right.
It hasn't been a democracy in, what's that? I don't know,
Decades.
14
Yeah,
years.
it's been decades.
They haven't had an election in 3 years. It's not a democracy now. See, Hegseth, this was a different context, but the point is still valid. Hegseth talked about the fog of war. This is not the fog of war. It's the fog of lies. So now the language is so corrupt and corrupted that it doesn't make sense anymore. What I took away from that part of the conversation is Donald Trump saying, subtly or not so subtly, depending on how you want to look at it, Volodymyr, pack your bags, son. You're done.
Time to go. Yeah.
Play the game. Your flight leaves, and you better be on it, because
it's like tap man on shoulder. Did a good job, son.
But because it's gonna wind up. It's gonna wind up like Sal in The Godfather. Hey, Mike, can you help me out for old time's sake? I mean, not Mike. Tom. Hey, Tom, can you help me out for old time's sake? Sorry, Sally, can't help you. And he just turns around and they put his ass in the car, and you never see Sal again. So when the conversation started about the theft, the corruption, right? A couple weeks ago, we started hearing about corruption in the Zelensky government, as though they've just uncovered this.
Yes.
The elephant hasn't been in the room. The elephant has been at the dining room table throughout the entire meal. Yep. And all of a sudden, while we're sipping coffee at the end, wait a minute, there's an elephant in my dining room. So that was the first sign. Volodymyr, I hope you have stolen enough money, because we're starting at your support group, but we're coming after you.
Right.
Now, Donald Trump wants to talk about elections and democracy, and the language has become so corrupt. The language is corrupt that you can't make sense out of anything that they say. Well, there's not a democracy. Really? There's not a democracy when you overthrew. Thank you, Victoria Nuland, for coming in and overthrowing. It was called the Maidan coup. They don't want to talk about that.
No. Well, you can't talk about that because that creates complications, right? But I think what's clear in this is what you mentioned. You played a good game, son. You played a good game.
But see,
That leg looks bad though.
as Tom
I'm a,
Porter has said for a number, my dear friend Tom says, the problem, and he usually says this in the context of us as African Americans, but it applies here as well. The problem is, once you learn how to play the game, then you got to learn how the game gets played.
yes. Yeah. There's a difference in those things. Yeah. Yeah. It seems that Zelensky is out. You're not the only one who made that point of saying he is on his way out, whether he realizes it or not. I think Wilkerson put it in military terms of a 13-cent solution, or you take a flight. And I think he added to that, well, I think the cost of a bullet has gone up to be $1. So in fact, a $1 solution.
Right.
Or
right.
you take that flight to Israel and you call it a day.
You surprisingly come down with a bad case of lead poisoning.
Yes. 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 He doesn't seem to be taking that hint.
No.
And if you notice, he was in London, I think it was yesterday, with all of these other Walking Dead Europeans who are as popular as, mold in their own countries. And he seems to be taking it from them of like, hey, I know Trump is saying bad things about you, but don't worry about it. It's okay. Just keep going. I don't think this is going to work out for him.
And see, what I think is missing in that analysis, you're absolutely right. And so when I say what is missing, I don't mean on your end, on Zelensky's end. On Zelensky's end is the Europeans, because they have put so much stock in Ukraine, because they have spent so much time perpetuating the lie and convincing their own citizens about this mythology of Trump, of Putin wanting to take over Russia, and we have to sacrifice and we have to dump all of this money into military expenditures, because they've invested so much into that lie. They can't now just turn to their people and say, oh, oops, my bad.
Yeah.
Sorry, homie. I misjudged that one. So to a certain degree, as far as Macron is concerned, and what's his name in France, Merz,
yeah,
in Germany, so far as they're concerned, as goes Zelensky, so go they. So they need him there. You must fight on, so that we can continue this lie. Because once he goes, the whole thing implodes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they can't afford. They know they're throwing good money after bad. They know they're sinking money into a dry well. But for them, in their mind, they don't have an option.
Does a ceasefire, and Russia's already said they're not going to accept a ceasefire, but does the ending of the war? Yeah, they should. I mean, at this point, if you look at the battlefield, like it's clear, even though it's media standards.
No, you back up. Angela Merkel has already admitted, we lied to you in Minsk 1, and we lied to you. I'm sorry, we lied to you in Minsk 1, and we lied to you in Minsk 2. So why would Russia buy that lie a third time?
Agreed.
And see, that's this again, the language is so corrupt. So in the language is corrupt by commission in terms of what they're saying, and by omission in terms of what they're not saying. So why would he? He says, no, I'm not I'm not going to sign on to a ceasefire for two reasons. One, you lied to me about this twice. And two, now we get to your point. I am winning on the battlefield. Basically, this thing is over. And why would I, he's not, see, I guess they think he's Chuck Schumer. I guess that they're confusing Vladimir Putin and Chuck Schumer. You were winning, Chuck, on the subsidy issue before Thanksgiving. You were winning, and you threw in the towel. Vladimir Putin's a little smarter than that. Why would I now go for a ceasefire when I've won?
Do you think that a U.S. president, I've asked this question for a few people, and I get different answers anytime I ask this question. Do you think that a U.S. president can even accept terms from Russia in this way? I mean, because obviously they're not going to accept anything that doesn't deal with their core demands associated with this. So the regions are ours. No Ukraine in NATO. The sanctions and those type of things are probably going to be added into it, saying these need to go. If Odessa may be added into this, especially if the war continues for much longer, meaning they're getting to the point where the Ukrainian military is buckling, and you can see it in the number of desertions. You can even see it in the territory that the Russia is taking that at a faster and faster pace. It seems that Trump seems to know this. I suspect the Europeans know this, considering their own media is reporting this. But I get the sense that from the U.S., the real driver in this is the humiliation of Ukraine just utterly and completely collapsing on the battlefield, which is why Trump is trying to get some kind of deal. The 20-point peace plan is nonsense. But obviously, the further this goes on, the worse this gets for Ukraine. Is it possible for a U.S. president, given all of the pressures of
No, this has nothing to do with Ukraine.
Yeah.
It has everything to do with the United States saving face.
Yes.
Ukraine is a proxy. If we put it in the context of prostitution, Ukraine is a hoe. And the United States has been the pimp. And the pimp don't give a damn about the hoe, because there are more hoes out there. So no, what Donald Trump is, and to a great degree, you and I are saying pretty much the same thing, but I think there's just a slight nuance to my point, and that is what. And I can't even put it in the context of Donald Trump, because I think Donald Trump is not the causation, he's the culmination. He's just the one sitting there now. Kamala Harris would have found herself in the same circumstance, but worse or more worser, because she would have tried to escalate against Russia, which would have made the whole damn thing exponentially worse. But the point being, the United States is trying to extricate itself from the Ukraine and is trying to find a face-saving way to do it. They cannot fathom, they cannot stomach, they cannot comprehend another Afghanistan. They can't have imagery of the U.S.-backed Ukraine decimated on the battlefield. Not when you have the head of the Joint Chiefs standing there saying, oh, we're going to start a fight here so we can scare China here. We're going to start a fight there so we ain't nobody scared of you, man. You don't have no game. Nobody is whoever that general is, whoever you are, nobody is afraid of you anymore. You got a military, yeah, you got a nuclear, yeah, but China has nukes, Israel has nukes, India has nukes, Pakistan. You got no game, homie. So they're trying to find a face-saving way out of this, And see, this is where, in my opinion, this is where the narrative of Putin is a jerk, Putin is a dictator, Putin is changing the terms. No, he's been nothing but consistent from day one. The issue is he's not what's the word?
Capitulating.
Capitulating.
Buckling.
Thank you. That's the word. He's
Yeah.
not capitulating. Donald Trump picks up the phone and says, hey Vad, can you get me out of this thing, please? What does Sal say to Tom? Can you help me out, Tom, for old time's sake? And Tom says, sorry, Sally, can't help you. That's what Trump is saying that's what Putin is saying to Trump. Sorry, Donnie Dum Dum, can't help you. I won. You will cry uncle, or the noogies will continue.
Yeah. Can the U.S. president accept the deal that Russia is effectively demanding in this case?
They're going to have to. It's just a matter of, with the noogies, how much brain damage are you willing to incur or endure before you finally cry uncle? There's no win here. It's over. And what is all Putin is saying, I'm going to continue to insert foot in ass until you say enough. Am I wrong?
Oh, no, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
And
you're not wrong at all.
And see, and I've mentioned her name a couple of times over the last few days, and I'm not picking on her, but I watched Simone Sanders on MS, whatever it is,
right? MSDNC.
Talk about Putin is we have to prevent Putin from taking over. Will you please stop telling that lie? Please, baby, please, baby, please stop telling that lie. So that this thing can end. Russia won. You picked the fight with the wrong people. And you got your ass kicked. As you did in Vietnam. As you did in Afghanistan. As you did against Iran a couple months ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. The Democrats. Well, the Democrats seem to be all in. And it was their president that effectively initiated and backed this to the hilt. They don't seem to be able to back away from it.
And Kamala Harris was going to double down on the same dumbs.
Yes.
I know a lot of folks don't want to hear that. But, what did Michelle? Oh, America isn't ready for a woman president. Well, did you look at the popular vote when Hillary Clinton ran against Donald Trump? Did you realize that Hillary Clinton won the popular vote against Donald Trump? If America isn't ready for a woman president, why did Hillary win the popular vote against Donald Trump?
Right.
That math isn't hard to do. I think it was 48% to 46%.
It was close. Yeah, most of the votes came out of California. I forget the exact number, but it was like 3 million votes came out of California.
I don't care if the votes came from the moon. She won.
Right.
When you tell me America is not ready for a woman president, that forces me to ask the question, then why did Hillary Clinton win the popular vote against, was it 16? Against Donald Trump in 2016? If you can square that circle, then I will concede the point. But until you can answer that question for me, then I think that point is misleading. And then you want to tell me, oh, well, America isn't ready for a black female president. Then why did Barack Obama win twice? Now, I know he's not a black woman, but he is a black man. So if you take a black man won twice and a woman won the popular vote once, now I would tend to think Kamala ran a lousy campaign, taking pages from Hillary Clinton's lousy campaign playbook. That to me makes more sense than America just isn't ready for a woman president.
Yeah,
I know I went off point there, but
no, you're fine. She ran as Joe Biden. I mean, if you remember, she wouldn't pull herself away from anything that Joe Biden was effectively doing. Ukraine was
and
just
she
one of the
supports
policies.
genocide.
And she supported genocide. Yep.
It's a losing formula. Losing
for her,
formula.
it definitely was. It definitely was. I mean, if you remember, Donald Trump, he was lying about it, but he was like, "I'm going to get peace in Gaza."
Right. But he was
lying
speaking
or
like
not.
Henry Kissinger. A piece of Gaza, a piece of Angola, a piece of Namibia. That's what he was. That's the piece he was talking about. Again, Gil Scott Heron.
And by the way, Trump agrees with you on foot and ass. This is the last clip that I play from this interview, where she asked him about Russia's position. If you remember, Zelensky came back and said, "Hey, these terms are worse." Yeah, because your position is effectively falling apart.
For 4 years. I watched.
Yes.
Your team has been going back and forth between Putin and Zelensky with various drafts of a peace deal. Which country right now is in the stronger negotiating position?
Dumb question.
Well, there can be no question about it. It's Russia. It's a much bigger country. It's a war that should have never happened. Frankly, it wouldn't have happened if I were president, and it didn't happen for 4 years. I watched that taking place, and I said, wow, they're going to cause some problems here. And it started, and it could have evolved into World War III, frankly. I think it's probably not going to be happening now. I think if I weren't president, you could have had World War III. I think you would have had a much bigger problem than you have right now. But right now, it's a big problem. It's a big problem for Europe, and they're not handling it well.
He's right.
He's right.
Because as you say, Harris would have escalated.
He's right on that point. And folks, even a blind squirrel can find a nut in the forest sometimes. A broken clock is right twice a day. Now, do you trust the clock? No. But
right.
No. Right. No. This watch works. All day.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to wear a broken watch and try to get to work on time based on a broken watch, but a broken watch is right twice a day. And Donald Trump is right on that point.
Yeah. Yes, he is. Dr. Wilmer, Leon, man, I always appreciate these conversations. Thank you for this.
And
Thank you for this. Dr. Wilmer Leon, he's a radio host, political scientist, nationally syndicated columnist, host of Connecting the Dots on YouTube and Inside the Issues on Sirius. You be safe and you have a really good day.
Oh, and let me just, if I can, Ray McGovern's going to join me today on Connecting the Dots from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern.
Badass. Ray is a good guy. He's a really good guy.
Great guy.
Be safe, man. Thank you for this.
All right.